And we've all worked at companies where sales reps, quite frankly, the company has a sales issue, not a marketing issue, right? It has a fundamental problem with closing deals. Hey everyone, and welcome to the Sales Fusion Podcast, where we talk about everything related to growth in the healthcare tech space. I'm David Kozlowski, and today I am sitting next to two very wise individuals, RJ Mate and Dave Wright. And we're going to be talking about the conflict between marketing and sales, and specifically the friction that we've all kind of experienced. Dave, obviously, you've been on the sales leadership side for a really long time, and the same with you, RJ. And I've been on the marketing side, so I think this is like the perfect fit to duel it out, even though there's definitely two people over here and one on this side. So really excited about it. But Dave, why don't you kick us off? What do you want to talk about?
Well, first of all, let me just say that between us, we outweigh you pretty significantly. But seriously, yeah, there's always been a conflict between sales and marketing, but I think it's been a perception more than a reality, or it should be anyway. And why is that? Why is there a conflict? And when I think about why there's a conflict, I think about, first of all, it's human nature. People are defensive. So if you pit people against each other, there's usually going to be some kind of fight there. So I think we need to consider, how do we avoid that, right? And so when I think about it is, if I'm doing my job and you're doing your job, then we should all be fine. It's kind of like we're in March Madness now. So if I think of a basketball analogy, if I've got three really good guards, but I got two really bad big guys, I don't have a very good team. My guards can be great, but if my big guys aren't any good, we're not going to win. From a sales and marketing perspective, I have to have a great marketing team and a great sales team. So together we make a great team and we can win. Does that analogy resonate with you guys at all?
It definitely does. Yeah. When you think about marketing, you think about sales, the reality is both those need to work in the same boat, rowing the right direction. So when you work for, pretty large companies, I don't think that there's really a conflict, right? Because if you use that word, that would mean that there's a direct opposition to the endpoint we're trying to get to. And the reality is one can't be possible without the other. A lot of companies have a really great product or a great service, and maybe it's easy to sell those for a certain period of time, but in order to broaden the market, in order to create a confluence, in order to have adjacent services to get into, you need to have strong marketing. So I validate what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. I've never viewed marketing as anything other than collaborative. Like, how can we use marketing to broaden our reach and to get to the shared goal, which is obviously growth in a company?
That's right.
But what do you see as the number one value in terms of that marketing provides? And I think this is where the conflict kind of hits from, at least from what I've seen in the sales and marketing side. I've actually seen individuals say well, your job is to generate leads. And if you've worked with marketing teams inside of a company, that is not necessarily always true, because it's possible that marketing is supporting your BDR groups. It's supporting your sales enablement. It's supporting, internal communications. It could be doing anything, right? It's a whole host of things. It's typically where your designers are. It's typically where your content creators are living. And how does a company utilize marketing, or rather it does utilize marketing more than just lead gen. And in a B2B space, especially where the deal or the days to close may be 6 months, 8 months, 12 months, how often are you going to bring in leads that are hot off the press that are going to close immediately, and sales is sitting there scratching their head going, well, I don't get it. Marketing's not doing their job. And that's where the frustration, I think, comes from, because they're not closing deals.
Well, as a salesperson and as a sales leader, I don't want my salespeople to say, hey, I can't do my job because marketing's not bringing any leads. Like, hey, if you're in sales, your goal, your role is to close deals, no matter where the lead comes from, right? And I think from a marketing perspective, yeah, lead generation is part of it, but it's not all of it, for sure. And I think back to the team analogy, everybody has to work together, right? Everything that marketing does, or not everything, but most of what marketing does should fuel what sales is doing, right? And sales has to provide that interface with marketing of what are the needs? What am I hearing from my customers? What are we lacking? How do we create a value proposition that resonates with the customer, and give that feedback to marketing so they can help create the content that sales can use. So they have to work together. Right?
For sure.
And you can go out and Google, or now with Chat GPT, you can go look up the conflict between sales and marketing. And they'll talk about things like, well, you got to have the same goals, common goals, and you got to have the metrics and measurements, and all that stuff's true. But you really have to have the same heart,
Right.
which is, what's our mission? What are we trying to accomplish, especially in the health tech space? If my mission is to help health tech companies get their solutions into the marketplace, because ultimately that makes healthcare better, right? So as long as we as sales and marketing share that same vision, we all have the same goal. We're here to drive revenue.
Right.
If we don't drive revenue together,
We don't have jobs.
there's no money.
Yeah, right.
And so marketing can be doing a great job, but if a sales team doesn't follow through, then there's no sales.
Right.
And if sales can be doing a great job, but if they don't have the support they need from marketing for collateral and positioning and everything else, then we're not going to get the sales we want. So they both have to work together to really achieve that growth that we're looking for.
Totally agree. Yeah. So 1,000% accurate. No disputing what you said is the evolution that this has kind of taken. And this ties back to David's original question around, what is it about leads that sales are looking for to be generated from a marketing standpoint, something to that effect. The reality is, if I think about the first 16 years of my professional career working for multi-billion-dollar organizations, marketing was the crux of getting the message out there. But it was never directly tied to qualified leads, right? That concept of marketing, having quantity and quality in creating an opportunity to close is something that really hasn't transpired until like the past 4 or 5 years, or been more present, right? Before it was like, hey, look, we need to be a thought leader. We want to be, first or second in every market. We need to make sure that the message is out there. We need to make sure that there's an understanding of what our product or service can deliver. And then once marketing does that, it's not like we're holding your feet to the fire. Now that ball is handed off to the running back, to the salesperson, to say, all right, put it into the end zone. Excuse me. Recently,
A lot of sports today.
Well, I'll have to come up with some shopping analogies to keep it legit.
Recently, we have focused from an operational excellence standpoint of tying metrics to every aspect of business to make sure that there's an ROI on it. And I don't want to say that we've over-rotated, because it's important to make sure that everybody is pulling their weight and is doing their job. But you can't say, hey, we've created a one-pager. How many leads can you close off of that? That's not a good correlation in my mind.
For sure.
We've created a one-pager that tells a story that identifies the use case and why somebody might want to invest with us. But do you have to take it all the way down to you converted a sale?
Right.
Some people want to, which is an over-rotation. There's just too much data out there. And there's all that exists on the sales side as well, with outbound leads and whatnot. So to bring this together, the reality is Sales Fusion Pro recognizes that companies are investing in marketing separately. They realize that companies are investing in sales and sales development. And you do get this, finger pointing that says, well, marketing is not producing the content, sales isn't converting the leads, and Sales Fusion Pro wants to do away with that. And that's the fusion component of really what the company offers.
Yeah, I think that's a good call out. One of the things, we've had this debate about marketing qualified leads and sales qualified leads. And to me, that's part of what's caused the conflict.
Right.
Right. If I'm gonna measure how many leads is marketing bringing me, and I'm gonna let the salesperson qualify those leads, by definition, I'm gonna have some conflict. Right. So the way I've been looking at it recently is, yeah, we want to measure the success of the activities of marketing and sales. But wherever a lead comes from, what's our goal? Our goal is to get a qualified opportunity that matches my profile of who I can benefit with my sales, and then move it through the sales process. Whether it's a sales-led lead that RJ gets from calling up somebody on the phone, or if it's a marketing-led lead that we get from our website or whatever. right? Yeah, we want to measure those things, but what we really care is when it gets further down that funnel
Right.
into the sales process. So that top of funnel activity, really important. Everybody has a role to play there, but from a sales perspective, the growth comes when we get those sales into the pipeline and they get close.
Right. It's irrelevant who brings the qualified lead or the qualified opportunity in. What matters is that you, instead of positioning separate goals with marketing, BDR groups, what have you, it's here's our thermometer. We got to get to this number. I don't care where it comes from. I don't care who does it. I don't care if it's 100% from the BDR group. Now, if it is from the BDR group 100%, you may want to look into your specifically go, all right, why is that happening? What are the reasons that this particular group is outperforming the rest of them? And is there an issue? What are the leading indicators that we can look at to see, is marketing doing a decent job? Is our sales reps really actually out there, trying hard, or are they slacking? And I think that those things are, but I think exposing those across the board to the other departments is going to start pointing blame. And that's what you're trying to eliminate by opening up the qualified lead and qualified opportunity process.
Yeah, and I look at that, it's like an 8-cylinder engine back in the old gas-powered car days, right? If I'm not running on all 8 cylinders, my car's not running very efficiently.
Sure.
Right? So if all my lead generation methodologies aren't running efficiently, then I'm not getting the most I can out of everything. And that's what I want. To really drive growth, I need everything to work. Right. And so that's how I'm looking at it. The other thing we've talked a little bit about separately was this concept of a sales waterfall. And what I mean by that is those top of funnel leads, I have to get so many of those to build through my sales process to get the close sales. So what's my goal for the year? I need to sit down and understand what's my target for the year. How many deals do I want to close? Or what impact do I want to make? And work my way through the conversion process of here's a lead. I get a lead. It converts into a discovery meeting. It converts then into an opportunity into my pipeline, et cetera. So I can build through a process of elimination. How am I going to get to my number for the year? That's something that sales and marketing needs to be working on together to drive the total growth.
For sure.
That's the interesting part about your diversification conversation that you have with clients.
Don't give too much details. We got a podcast topic on that. I don't want to break it down.
It's extremely valuable. And then the other component is when you start to have that conversation with clients, where their interests tend to lead.
Yeah.
Right? Because some will say, "Oh, we need to do video," or "We want to focus on this." And the reality is, there's probably a healthy mix across the different routes to market.
Yeah.
To show where marketing can get the message out.
For sure. I do think that everything we're talking about, or that you're kind of bringing and proposing, I personally love it because I love the unification of all of growth, right? And however, I don't think we're necessarily going to say that going in and changing, removing the term MQL and SQL to marketing-led lead and sales-led lead, and then qualified lead, et cetera, is going to change, because I think it's a cultural change. And the reason I do is I think a good example is I've heard reps say, so I went to a trade show and I met 5 people and I brought those back to be able to do follow-up. And we would label those previously in companies that I've worked with as marketing qualified leads. And the reason it was labeled as a marketing qualified lead was because it came from a marketing related event. Marketing set it up, booked all this stuff for them, got it all teed up, but sales had to obviously have the conversation. Sales, if they're not selling at an adequate rate, they're going to want to be able to go back to their boss and say, but I got those leads. They should be sales. And I'm not saying that sales qualified is defined that a sales rep got it, right? It could be a stage in the pre-pipeline that's, we booked a meeting. The point is that they want to take credit. And they want to be able to show that they're doing a good job when they go to trade shows and that there's an ROI there, or whatever their mission is, especially if they're not selling. So I think how do you implement that culture change when your sales rep is already struggling? And we've all worked at companies where sales reps, quite frankly, the company has a sales issue, not a marketing issue, right? It has a fundamental problem with closing deals. Why is there this thing? Why does it matter, right? it's a lead at the end of the day. Like, it's still going to take you 8 months to close it.
Right.
And did you have a product issue? Like, there's so many other issues you can be pointing the finger at.
Well, that's true. There's lots of issues.
Yeah.
Right? But I think a couple things. Number one, it is a mindset. It is a mentality. It's an approach, right? It's a philosophy. So you have to think about it in the sense of when you're building your team, you're building your culture, especially in the healthcare space, right? Because we know the deal cycle's long, right? That's a given in healthcare technology, right? Or healthcare in general. So that amplifies itself if I have conflict between my teams. But we've got to trust that we're all charging down the same path, right? And we've got to trust that it's not my job as an individual sales rep to make sure that you as a marketing person are doing your job, right? It's just another sports analogy. Like I'm a left tackle, offensive tackle. My job's to protect the quarterback so he doesn't get sacked. If I don't do my job, then the quarterback can't complete a pass.
Sure.
Right? But the quarterback can't worry about me doing my job because he's worried about throwing the ball.
Or a drummer that plays to a click that's not playing to a click, and a bass player that can't keep the beat, can't get the guitar. Yeah.
There
Trying
you
to find
go.
another analogy.
We'll get a music analogy in there, but you get the point.
Yeah, right. You rely on others.
Yeah, everybody has to rely on others. So I think just building that team is what's important.
Yeah. So obviously teamwork within an organization is why we tie things back to sports analogies. But the reality is the explanation of why there's a disjointed understanding between marketing and sales, especially at the street level, is really because leadership is not defining for the overall organization what the goal is. So again, in 20 years of my selling career, I never came to the table with marketing. And I never had a strategic conversation that said, all right, we're trying to accomplish 25% year-over-year growth. I'm the left tackle, you're the running back. What can I do in order to make sure that you have success? And that was a leadership thing, right? There was kind of a division of, hey, look, here's your marketing materials. Go see what we can make happen with these marketing materials. Or, a lot of people are paying for MQLs nowadays. Millions and millions of dollars. Google, for example, like all my marketing qualified leads came from them paying. And when you do that and they're not vetted, the marketing qualified leads, I went through thousands, tens of thousands over 2.5 years and had very low success rates on that. So the point is with Sales Fusion Pro, we're trying to work with companies from 2 to 150 employees at the leadership level that says, what are you trying to accomplish? Is it 20% year-over-year growth? Is it 15 to 25 net new logos per year? Whatever it is. And then build that strategy that eliminates sales saying marketing isn't doing their job and marketing saying that sales isn't doing their job.
I think that's a great point, RJ, because you have to have the right foundation to build on, right? And that foundation is, what's our mission? Who are we going after? What's our target? What's our goal? What's our objective at a high level? And then it is on the leadership team to filter that through the organization. But that foundation and getting that right and understanding where we do want to go, that's where the common goal to me comes into play.
And as you stated, people really do start with sometimes guard up, perhaps like a little bit defensive.
Human nature.
Human nature, that's how categorized it. And if you can get the teams together, the teams that are typically client-facing, marketing and sales, and you can say, here's what we're working towards, here's the shared goal, here's our end state, either in 24, 36, 60 months. And you can get that mindset of, all right, hey, let's figure out what a qualified lead looks like, regardless of sales, regardless of marketing, and then how we convert that. The success is going to go up for the organization. People are going to feel energized about saying, all right, we can figure this out.
Yeah. One question I do have for you, RJ, is in your experience, and I know you've talked about Palo Alto. I don't want to know that one in particular, but have you ever been in a position where you felt like marketing wasn't doing enough for you? Because and the reason I'm asking, I'm going to preface and try to lead a little bit, but it sounds like a lot of the times you make statements that are not, you don't really care. Like marketing never really had an impact on you because you're a good sales rep, and that's my assumption. And so it makes me wonder, are the people who complain just really bad at sales? Like, I don't know. Like, Or is it because or did marketing have a big impact on you and you saw the benefit?
I love marketing, and my perspective of marketing is this: I've sold in high tech for 20 plus years, but I've never sold anything that's brand new. Meaning that everything that I've sold, even though it's in the technology space, and people would argue it's a newer something to market, it's not the first time that it's ever been sold before. What marketing had done for me specifically is they said, all right, you're selling in a space that there's already installed customers, there's already buyers, there's already a persona behind it. But what's the message the organization is trying to bring to the client that makes it better or different? That's where I relied on marketing, right? So it could be at Palo Alto, it could be Google, it could be anywhere. Like, look I was selling a firewall at Palo Alto. The firewall was 25 years old, pioneered, back in the early 90s. But the messaging of how clients were going to, better their security posture by using Palo Alto came directly from marketing. And we retold that, and we retold that, and we retold that. And, early days, not to make this about Palo Alto, they're like, oh, all they are is a marketing company, their technology stinks. But that was easy to say until marketing got across the point that said, this is the stark advantages of using ours rather than theirs. And then it took flight.
So they created the messaging. You guys were the messengers. You were making sure that people understood what they had communicated.
They went from $1 billion company to a $5 billion company in 5 years. Would not have happened without marketing.
Interesting. It's funny that you see it that way too, because it was in my old perception would say that even though marketing came up with the terminology, the messaging, that you were the ones hammering the pavement, the sales reps, RVPs or whatever, the BDR groups, the ones basically presenting that information. The messaging came from one department, but you guys took flight and made it what it is, and you still give credit back to the team that developed that messaging.
That's how it goes, You have to give credit where credit's due.
And just to pile on that a little bit, the whole thing about credit, if it's a collaborative effort,
yep,
right, then we win as a team, we lose as a team.
For sure.
Right. And so the credit piece is where you do start to get some conflict, I think, if you talk about credit. But unless it's positive, then.
Yeah, you talk about that a lot too, even like with sorry to interrupt, but like I've heard you say that in general, because I'll be preaching that you guys got a deal closed for somebody or whatever. And I like, and then the response is, well, there are some for sure that we can say started and ended with us, but some of these we kind of helped get to the finish line. But can we really take credit? Like there's like a huge humility standpoint there, which to me is slightly annoying at times, because I'm like, no, it was definitely because of you guys, but okay.
Well, I've obviously been in sales for a long time. You get into sales because most likely, right, you want to help your customers, obviously, but you want to make money. You make money in sales by closing deals. It's pretty simple. I don't want to take credit for it, or I don't want to give credit for it. I want to do my job and drive the results. Now, I need help. The old adage we always had was, don't lose a deal alone. Meaning you got to bring every club from your bag, another sports analogy, right, into a deal to win it. If we take that approach from a sales and a marketing perspective, we're in it to win. I'm the left tackle. Yeah, I did my block. We won the Super Bowl because the quarterback and the tight end get all the glory. Well, who cares? We won the Super Bowl.
Right. You wouldn't have been able to do it without the other players.
Right. That's the kind of mindset we need here is we want to win the Super Bowl together. And to do that, everybody's got to play their position to the best of their ability.
It brings up another conversation that I've had with creatives. And it's probably not a good place here, but right now, but it does bring up the question then is like, why is the quarterback, which I would relay as maybe a sales rep in terms of why is the quarterback highest paid, right? Or like why is, and left tackle maybe a designer. And why is that designer not necessarily, if they're a part of that team, compensated equivalently, or why isn't there an incentive package or whatever? There's a list of things. And the reason I bring it up, and I think that's where if leadership has to do a really good job of creating a culture inside that team to alleviate those pressures before they happen. Because it is very easy for, I've seen it, where a designer or a multimedia person hears from a sales rep or somebody else, and there's disgruntledness, and then they feel that pressure, and then all of a sudden, or layoffs happen or whatever. There's a multitude of things where you can see this isn't going to be well for this particular team because of the optics that are given because of this whatever individual or person that runs that team.
Could I give you one more sports analogy?
Sure.
Here's my other sports analogy. I once had an early in career sales rep walked into my office and said, "Hey, how come I'm not making as much money as that other guy down the hall? We're doing the same job." And this relates to kind of the value that everybody individually brings. And my analogy for that was a Major League Baseball team. How many starters on a Major League Baseball team? Starting pitchers, usually 5. Maybe there's 4 and the 5th one floats. But anyway, the starting pitcher in a Major League Baseball team, the number 1 starter might make I don't know what the numbers are today, $100 million a year. The 5th starter might make the league minimum, whatever that is, $1 million a year. So he's pitching, throwing the same pitches, doing the same job, but he's not having the same level of success, not adding the same value to his team, so he makes less money, even though you're doing the same job. So from a company perspective, that's why every job is valued differently and why the designer might not make as much as the salesperson. There's just a value to it, and some of it is the job you're doing exactly, and some of it is the method and the success that you have in doing that job.
Sure. And
remember that conversation, RJ?
Who was that with?
I think there's also there's also something to be said about the idea of how do you create internally in your workplace a culture of that designer is still highly valuable regardless of the pay. And I mean, I forget what book it was, but people aren't typically leaving because of pay. They're leaving because of managers. So how do you create that culture internally where someone's not disgruntled and they feel valued regardless of the number that they're getting and giving them fulfillment? Because you're right. I mean, the market is the market and it determines the pay. And as a business, you're probably going to hire somebody for the lowest dollar that you can hire them for naturally. So I've had people come in and say, well, I want to make X. And I'm like, I can have like 5 people that can do that job for that pay. So there's no reason to pay you that much. So I get that. You had something you were going to touch on about?
You would really lead in nicely about being humble and humility, especially in terms of marketing roles and sales roles. And, the reality is we as people can only really control how you feel when you're in my presence or how you feel when you're in my presence. If I am audacious, if I'm over the top, if I'm arrogant, that might make you feel a way that you don't like you don't want to be around me. So from a sales perspective, a lot of the time really should be spent outside of your organization with clients. And if you put that hat on and you say, all right, I'm meeting with XYZ client and we're talking about their business and I'm trying to understand where they're coming from and potentially how I can help them, you need to make sure that you're not coming across any other way than humble, any other way than, with humility. So if you can act that way with a client, then you need to act that way with everybody across the board, right? Because you're soliciting a feeling of saying, I want to do business with you. I want to work collaboratively on a team in order to create a sense of this is who they are as a genuine person, and we're going to get to a spot of obviously success. And being humble, if you're a quarterback, some quarterbacks are extremely humble. Obviously, we've tied that. Others aren't.
Right.
Some guys want the maximum contract. Others say, in order to make sure that we don't hit the salary cap, I'll take a pay break. Right? And that's the sense is basically if you're a team and you're trying to accomplish greatness, you have to lead that way.
Awesome. Well, we'll end on humility. Thanks so much for doing the chat. We've got plenty more to come. We're not even going to change outfits to do it. So it should be a pretty quick conversation. And everyone who's listening in, if you need any help with growth, sales, marketing, BDR, outbound sales, etc., feel free to reach out to salesfusionpro.com where we can help your healthcare tech company grow beyond what you can believe. Again, I'm David Kozlowski, Dave Wright, and RJ Mate. Thanks so much for being here, guys, and thank you for listening. Take care.